Sheila Singh, your podcast host, and I'd like to welcome you to the My Brand HQ podcast, all things personal branding for career acceleration. This podcast is for talented, ambitious career professionals like you who are wanting to be perceived as a thought leader, to be top of mind to those that matter, and to make an impact and stand out, be that in your team, your organization, or your industry, and to be inspired by other successful leaders. I will be interviewing high-achieving career professionals who have carved out a successful career in their field and are open to sharing their career journey, their challenges, their learnings and insights with you, someone who is looking to establish your personal brand and accelerate your career. Through my personal branding and coaching practice, I enable career professionals primarily in the technology industry to earn more money, to increase their salary. In fact, I spoke to all of my past clients that I've worked with over several years and learned that actually overall, they've received an average of 47% increase in their package. Would that be a great place to be? They've also all achieved at least one, if not more, promotions or moved on to a higher level in their career at another organization. And they're looking to advance their career while showing up as the best version of themselves. If this sounds like you, then do reach out to me and let's have a chat. And why do I do this? Well, during my corporate career spanning 25 years, I quickly realized that hard work alone was not enough to get me to where I wanted to be and the success that I strive for. And my belief is that hard work, coupled with creating and establishing a strong personal brand, can both influence and accelerate your career and get you to where you want to be. In today's episode, I'm speaking with Milena Kirandjiska. Milena is a tenured customer success leader with people and innovation at the forefront of her approach. Take care of your people and your people will take care of your business is her motto. She currently leads an EMEA-wide digital customer engagement function at SAP Concur, where scaling value delivery for customers and operationalizing customer success is at the core of her mission. This demands collaboration and creativity, which is what keeps her excited to go to work every day. Milena has been with SAP Concur for 11 years now, and during that time she has worked with customers of all sizes and segments to build a holistic approach to drive better outcomes and create positive impact to the bottom line. Early investment in the customer relationships and cross-functional collaboration has been the cornerstone of her strategy in speeding up value delivery for customers and ensuring exceptional retention for SAP Concur. Milena comes from Macedonia. She obtained her business administration degree in Prague and later relocated to London, where she lives and works today. In today's episode, Milena shares with us the impact of showing up authentically and embracing your unique self, about the law of reciprocity and being of service to others, that we are all lifelong students and it's a good thing to ask questions, the power of connection and being curious, on getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and the critical steps to delivering a first-class customer experience. So let's head over and hear what Milena has to say. Milena, good afternoon and welcome to My Brand HQ. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Leila. Thank you for having me. I've been, good, very well. Just at the finish line of this year. So busy, but good.
Fantastic.
How are you?
I'm really well and I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So let's get started. Tell me, first of all, I'd like you to share your journey with us in terms of how that has evolved into a very successful career in tech.
Interesting, because I personally never had a goal to get into tech. Life randomly placed me there and I am so grateful. So the journey was, I intended to study medicine. I intended to be a doctor. I studied natural sciences And pure randomness, I ended up studying business administration at uni, went to Prague, did what I did, one thing led to another, and after graduation, I found a job in Concur, which was small but very successful SaaS company at that point of time. And very, very quickly, I realized, sort of already moved my interests from basically medicine to where I was suddenly in the business world. And I think one of the greatest realizations very early on was we need to understand technology as an inextricable part of our lives, and technological advancements are not a threat. I've met so many people that always think, we'll be replaced by robots, and I always thought like, oh my God, how would you think that? Like if you take tech and software as an AI today as your ally, I think we will find our future way more exciting than threatening. So I found myself in tech in Concur, and from there just ended up growing, ended up relocating in the UK. I wouldn't change it for the world now. I think this is it.
What is it about the industry that really excites you, inspires you?
So first and foremost, I find it very dynamic. I know people from so many different industries. At the end of the day, I'm in a client-facing world, so I speak with customers from many organizations, and yeah, you can compare, you can see. Tech is quite dynamic, fast-paced, very agile. Not all tech companies will be as agile and as flexible. Some are more than others. But mainly you're required to think on your feet, to adopt new stuff, new technologies, to not be afraid of ambiguity. And I, as a person, can absolutely thrive in ambiguity. So that's something that excites me. Not everything is by the checklist and by the book, and innovation is obviously critical to survival in the technology world. Everything is new constantly. So yes, you just can't be bored.
Yeah, and I agree. It's evolving, it's dynamic. There's always something new to learn, and I think that in itself makes a career in the industry quite challenging in a good way, because there's always so much to learn and get involved in if you wish to. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, moving countries as well before now, sort of settling in the UK, in London. So tell me a bit about that. How was that for you?
So, well, interesting is a very understatement. So I'm Macedonian by birth. I moved to the Czech Republic to study, but then I stayed and then made a life and started my career there. And then ultimately came here in the UK 6 years ago. It was two very different experiences moving countries twice. The first time I was a student and I was surrounded by other international students. So the cultural difference was huge, but it wasn't as difficult because you belong to a community of people that are in the exact same position as you are. And from there, you kind of learn how to navigate the diverse environment and the foreignness of things. And then later in life, when I moved to the UK, it was purely for work. And all I had was work. So the context was very different. And to begin with, I didn't move to London. I moved where our offices were. I moved in the countryside. And I was thrown into a proper English environment. And excuse me. And it was, looking back, I was like, I'm so glad I did that, because many people question, actually, why didn't you move to London? I was like, no, that's where my office is. I just want to find myself in this country first, and then go to the big city. And on one side, it was probably more difficult because I was on a fast track to assimilate the English culture. Made some lifelong friends from my colleagues, And they did help me. They really helped me with just introducing me to how things operate here. And I learned quite a few things there. And one of the things I learned that later I had to unlearn was the British stiff upper lip. So that as I was just who I was, like quite temperamental, quite gregarious, very hot-blooded Macedonian. As I moved through my 20s and then my 30s, suddenly I found myself in an environment where it was better if I toned that down. I thought it was better. Nobody told me it would be better, but I thought it would be better if I just mellow it all down. And it was a little bit of a cultural shock to begin with, but then I learned a lot from it. I learned a lot from that process of adaptation and assimilation and coming out of it and getting in touch with myself again. I am so grateful having done that. I'm so grateful I didn't skip on that experience. And yeah, here I am having 3 homes now.
Amazing. And what did you learn from that? Of firstly then sort of trying to tone it down, as you say, and then kind of showing up as you?
Yeah, you know how we talk recently a lot about everywhere actually around us about the term authenticity, and I've mentioned this to other people. Authenticity is very much a performative thing. So it's about how people perceive you. Oh, she's authentic. I'm the best judge if I'm authentic or not. Yeah, but I might be different, authentic self maybe elsewhere. So, but for the lack of a better word, I will use the word authenticity. I thought by toning part of me down, by being quieter, but by maybe not speaking my mind as much, I was adapting. I was most certainly a quiet observer, and that really serves me well, but wouldn't serve me well in the long run. And so ultimately, it ended up being a bit of an empty experience. I found myself for the first time in my life having everything. I threw myself at work, so pretty much I flourished at work. Everything was good, but suddenly there was this sense of emptiness that I really couldn't describe. And then and now it's a continuous inner work I'm doing, and self-growth, and I'm spiritual myself. And it inevitably merged to a point, these 2 works merged to a point where I was like, like I have suppressed an important part of me that didn't show up at work or in my new environment with my new people, my new friends. That's actually quite crucial. That probably does make me happy. And I think that was that lesson had to be learned. It was the hard way, but it had to be learned. And then I had to learn how to bring back that more authentic self, that Milena that speaks with her hands, that Milena that's louder than usual and questions everything. And it felt so much more comfortable. And I felt people then accepted me even more rather than what I all had in my head before. So yeah, I think that was a good lesson, good experience.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that as well. I think that's a really important point to take on board, because there's a belief, and this is just my observation when I've been in the workplace as well, there's a belief that there's a certain way that we should show up. And you can contrast that. It's almost like people believe that you wear a mask from the minute you walk into the office, that's it, you're like this different person. And actually, kind of to your point there as well, we don't realize the amount of stress that causes on us, on our bodies, on our mental health, potentially, of having to be this person that we think we should be in the workplace. Actually, by really embracing who you are and taking that and then showing up as the best version of you authentically, becomes so much more effortless. And then you get to focus on what you're there to do. You're not having to spend so much energy and effort in thinking about, am I holding on to that mask?
Yeah,
that I believe I should.
And also, like, a lot of us, and I've seen particularly the young, bright, beautiful people that come to work, and often, sometimes it's about fitting in and being different, yeah? And you notice you're different and you don't want to be different. And I would say no, absolutely no. Be different. Let people know how colorful you are. Isn't it all today about diversity? And you know what? Diversity is not only about race and gender and sexual orientation. I think it's very much about diversity of personality, diversity of thought, diversity of background. Bring it all on, because we are better, we are smarter when we are more of us. We do better when we are together. And you trying to be just like the next person next to you, you deprive the workplace, the world, of your two unique gifts you could bring, whatever they may be.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. And you know, I think there is an element of fear of being judged, right? Because, you know, we talk about wanting to fit in, and you know, we've all been there at some point in our life. And I started to recognize very early on, because that wasn't my natural self, that I would want to stand, I want to be different, I want to do different. And that was not from a place of significance, but just from a place of, I don't want to be just a part of the crowd. And I think in the workplace, there's that fear that if you are different, then it's seen as wrong. But then arguably, something I talk a lot about, and I know you're passionate about, is having that presence, and particularly being in a client-facing role. You know, you want to be able to stand out, you want to be memorable for good reasons, of course. And by fitting in, you're less likely to do that, and that's going to hold you back, whether it's with your clients or in your own career.
Absolutely couldn't agree more. It's an evolution as well. It does come through your experience, through your progression. Again, I'm going to say, not only in career, in life as well. That the more you tap into your uniqueness, the more hopefully you can tune in how people react. And I guarantee you, people react very positively. We are afraid of judgment, but mostly our fears are in our heads. Start from yourself. I start from myself. I never judge somebody only because they didn't fit the mold. My instinctive reaction is like, oh, intriguing. Talk to me. So I think, like, people seek connections. Like, people want to get to know you, and when they don't, it's fine, it's okay. But I think it's important for us to realize that most of our fear is in our head. And yes, we all have our own insecurities, which is where our inner work comes in. But if we are lucky enough, and I've been very lucky to be surrounded by a very safe work environment, like a safe group of colleagues, safe group of teammates, I appreciate that. Could be not a common thing, but I hope it is common. Actually, I hope it is. That really helped me double check, double question myself. Why do I have to carry this mask? Why do I have to tone the Macedonian in me? It was also the people that really helped me question myself.
Yeah, and that's great. You've been surrounded with such amazing people, and I think it's also important to remember that the way that we actually do show up impacts the way that people around us behave. So when you, in your case, when you are showing up authentically, you're going to naturally get a better response from the people around you. When we try and wear a mask and we're not being in integrity with ourselves, or we're not being authentic, it's not even a case that people will call you out on it. They may not even be able to pinpoint what it is, but there'll be something about that way that you're showing up that people will pick up on, that something isn't quite right. That will then generate a different behavior or response from people around you.
That is guaranteed to result in lack of depth. That's what it is. Like, as you said, it's not something we can pinpoint. We just don't connect as meaningfully and as deeply. That's the bottom line. If I'm not myself, and if I'm putting way too much whatever, masks, or faking it, whatever it is, I'm trying to impress you, anything, it's and you do whatever it is you do, that's it. We don't show up as our true self, so our connection couldn't possibly become meaningful.
Yeah, definitely, most definitely. And something really important, I think people listening to this take away from this, if nothing else, and I don't know what else is coming, but I think this point in itself is incredibly powerful when it comes to looking at how you're showing up in the workplace. And a question for you, Milena, is, and I was asked this question once a few years ago, is how do you know who your authentic self is?
I don't think there is a right answer to that. I think when you are at ease and peace with yourself.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a definition, because we evolve. So, that Milena at 25 is very different than Milena at 30 than Milena at 35, and so on. And we better be different. We evolve, we learn, we grow. So it has nothing to do with our characteristics, but it has everything to do with our inner state of being. Am I at peace? If I'm at peace, that means I'm really myself. I'm good. I'm not stressed. I'm not trying to come up with anything. Well, if something comes up, it comes up. I'm highly likely I'll share it. But I think that's the biggest pointer, probably.
Yeah, and I'd agree with you. I think have that feeling of calmness, of feeling grounded, of just being comfortable with yourself and who you are and how you're showing up. That's the authenticity, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
The feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, the feeling. And then I talk about personal branding and the feeling that you create for others when they hear your name, right? And again, so important. We can say what we want and do what we want, but ultimately people remember you for that feeling.
Absolutely.
Great for them.
Yeah. Somebody very wise sometime must have said that people will never remember what you said to them, but they will remember how you made them feel. I've stolen this word from someone, but
Maya Angelou.
There.
Yes.
There. Yeah, Maya Angelou. But true. I barely remember I barely remember most of the conversations I have, but I most definitely remember how I feel about those conversations and those people. And I think we should be very mindful about how we leave people once we leave them after whatever, a chat, an interaction, and
most definitely. So tell me, Milena, with an accomplished career in the field of client development, customer success, what 3 things in your experience are essential for a first-class customer experience?
I can talk forever about this, my favorite topic. Okay, first-class customer experience. Well, first and foremost, it starts at the beginning. It doesn't start when the customer is a customer and is already paying you money and you're like looking to renew them. No, absolutely not. Customer experience is pretty much every interaction with your company, from the website they read to the salesperson that called them to the moment they negotiated with you and whatever, say they're now your customer. For us to ensure that we will now deliver customer value, we will deliver on customer expectations. Again, did we capture what actually success looks like for that customer at the outset? So I think it's critical for companies, for businesses, to educate their salespeople and have processes and systems in place that enable salespeople to ask those questions, to capture that data, store that data, hand over that data onwards. Because yes, we sell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different services and products. Not that many. However, rest assured, every single customer measures success and perceives value very, very differently. They perceive value in their own context. So first and foremost, capture, understand why they bought, why they're doing business with you. Now, this, as the data gets handed over to your customer engagement, your customer success people, guess what's important then? Not only to keep track of whether you're delivering, but recognize the fact that priorities change, goals change, desired outcomes will change. So now you need to redefine them 6 months later, 1 year later, 2 years later. Again, redefine it, capture it. And obviously talk to it. But I'm gonna strip it down to even more basic things. For a 5-star customer success manager, they need to listen to learn, not to listen to respond. And you know what? It's a basic rule for any communication. But I'm just gonna take it with my team in my customer world. That's rule number 1. Yeah, you need to prepare. You need to prepare a lot before you jump on a business review, jump on any sort of meeting or call. Do prepare. But you never know where that customer is going to take you, how they're going to react, where they're coming from, what day they're having. What if they're about to leave the company? What if they've just joined the company? There's so many variables that can influence the direction of the conversation you're having, that you coming prepared only for one set of, let's say, outcomes or one set of steps won't be the best way. Will be a good way, but won't be the best way. Good client success managers, it's normal. They will be empathetic. Like, it's important for it's not something novel I'm telling here. But when I mean empathy, I really don't mean somebody say calling you up, complaining, asking questions. I don't mean that. That's basic. I actually, when I mean empathy, I mean you're talking to people. People buy from people. People do business with people. Check their LinkedIn profile. See how long they've been there. See where they've come from. See where they studied. I don't know. Like, connect with them on a person. What the success of this project, what it means to them personally, and then what it means to them as a business. Differentiate between the two. Because they will be your champion, even if they're not the main decision maker. They will open the doors. And let alone when you do talk to the decision maker and when you do have the signatory on a business review. They're people as well, just like you. And they have heard your sales pitch a million times. And they have had account managers from every single vendor. Again, what's going to differentiate you is how you relate to them, how you relate the value you bring to the value they want to achieve. Because yeah, we are software vendors. We all automate, we all digitalize, we all save you money, and we all save you time, and we all sell efficiency. Everybody, give me one software vendor that wouldn't be talking about this. But I think where people very often miss the point is when they don't really get to know the business of the customer or the industry in which they operate. A small professional services or a financial services company in East London is very, very different than a manufacturing company in Wolverhampton. Very, very different than a telecom company in Paris. Like, it's just appreciate the differences. And don't appreciate it just on such a high level. Open their website, read about them, learn about them. I would say that's a A+ account manager relating to their customers at a deeper level.
Yeah, thank you first of all for sharing that. That's very in-depth and incredibly valuable. You know, and I took away a lot from that, just hearing you talk about it, and it made me smile as well, because so many people do focus on the solution, you know, and as you said, the cost saving and it's being agile and automated and so forth and so in the cloud and what have you, whatever it is, you know, in terms of the solution. But actually, as you said at the start of that, the expectations for each individual client is going to be different,
Very.
and the way it impacts them both personally and professionally, why are they working with you, why are they speaking to you, is going to be different. And the minute you can understand that, and the minute you can then make that real connection with those people, as you said, even if they're not the decision makers, can make a huge impact to where you both go moving forward.
Yeah, and also, how do you help them? Like, let them, if you can truly help them, then help them see that. Like, but for you to help them, you need to understand where the pain is. You need to understand where the business challenge is. In all fairness, sometimes customers don't necessarily recognize, oh yeah, that is a problem. Hence, you are the trusted advisor as a customer success manager. You educate. But how on earth would you educate them if you didn't pay attention to hundreds of other customers similar to this customer? How would I ever be able to talk to someone in the, I don't know, in the banking industry if I haven't already served 10 other banking customers and share the story, share the best practice, told them what the most common challenges might be? How about you, Mr. Customer? Might never be the same, but if you don't ask, you won't know. Be curious and be genuinely curious. That's actually one thing I forgot to mention. One of the things I tell my team, my many teams over the past few years is show up genuinely curious. Don't ask the question for the sake of asking, because people will realize that you're asking it for the sake of asking it. Asking because you really want to know and see what happens next. And that way you really see how I can really help you.
Yeah. And I like that, you know, because by being curious, by showing up in that way, you'll naturally want to know more. The questions will come more naturally. And people love to talk about themselves. They love to talk about what's going on for them and their problems, the challenges they're facing. So if you show a genuine interest, they will respond well to that. But also, it creates massive connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's huge, because that creates the feeling that we talked about, which creates the being remembered for the right reasons. So that will then pick up the phone to you the next time around, irrespective of who you work for.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. And you make them feel valued. Mm-hmm. You don't just show up with your presentation and we all have great products. We all have great services. I can bring on my fancy solution consultants and wow you with a demo, with the next one and the next one. But make them feel valued because you are curious about them as people, as business, as a customer community. And I always, somehow I guarantee to my guys, like at work, I'm like, I guarantee you, if you have this conversation, any opportunity for growth will lend itself. You don't have to desperately look for it and ask for it. If you're just having a genuinely good conversation about them and their business, the opportunities will unveil themselves.
Yeah. And tell me, because something you mentioned as well at start, so my takeaway from what you said earlier was a comment you made is, how do you then deal with the unexpected? Because we're talking about planning and preparing for meetings, and there's only so much you can do, and it is about showing up open and curious. So tell me about that. I'm sure you've had numerous situations.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with the unexpected?
So I recognize that this is a skill that maybe needs developing, but thinking on the go, thinking on the fly, like, and some people are not very comfortable with it. They're not comfortable with surprises, and we have to appreciate that. Doesn't mean they're not good relationship managers.
Correct.
But it does come to a point where, one, being comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's okay if you don't know. If the customer throws you off and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what? They will appreciate you being honest. Don't, in a way, I'm like, I've always seen, and I've been in this situation myself, where I've tried to dig myself out of some hole, and you're just digging yourself deeper into that hole. Don't try answering things you don't know. Be honest. People will appreciate the fact that I actually don't know. I didn't realize this was happening for you. Let me explore, let me look into it. I'm really sorry. Could we now go back? Can we talk about this? The amount of times I've begged customers, I've told them, can we just start? Can we turn the page? Can we start fresh new? I'm new to you, I don't know, can we start fresh new, please? But I will dig into our history and resolve the unresolved notes. I think it helped them see me as human, as Milena, as opposed to see me as the company I represent. So I think it takes maybe some time. I don't think there is a silver bullet, but the more you become comfortable with saying, I don't know, but let me look into it for you, the better.
Yeah.
And then with experience, with knowledge, the more conversations you have, the more you develop the business acumen, the more you will find yourself comfortable with the uncomfortable. And also solid business acumen can really help you navigate difficult conversations. Because if you don't know the answer to a question that has just popped up, or a topic the customer wants to talk about and you weren't ready about, but then maybe you can tap into some previous knowledge, some previous conversation, something you've done before that maybe you can double check with the customer. Well, I've had this before. Is that what you're talking about? Is that of interest? Do you want to talk about that? So yeah, it comes.
Yeah.
It doesn't come overnight, but it does come. The more you throw yourself out there.
It does. And I think you make a really valuable point that we don't all know the answers to every question that could possibly be thrown at us. And I think being honest about it and saying, as you said, let me just take that away and I'll come back to you, and being honest about it, it's just about being in integrity. Because you start to dig a hole for yourself if you try and make things up, and then it just becomes worse, and then you lose face with the client.
Yes.
And
then it's too late.
Yeah, and actually we're always on a journey of learning. Every day we're learning new things, so that's okay. And as you say, you'll as you're in the role or in the company, you'll continually be learning, so you'll have more knowledge or you'll have more information to share. But particularly if you're starting out or you've got a new client, for example, it will take time. So I think the point you made about being honest is really important. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, but you brought up a really interesting point now. You said open to learning. There are people that they could be in their role or in their company for a long time. If they're not open to the fact that they don't know, and that every single interaction with every single colleague or every single customer will highly likely bring at least one new piece of information, then you're not learning. Like we learn. We're lifelong students, aren't we? Like, how could any one of us know everything? Like, how you and I have such different life experiences that guaranteed 5 minutes chat between us will certainly bring up a new fact for you, for me, something. Oh, I learned something new there. Let alone in a customer-facing world where you're constantly talking to customers, where you're constantly, when you're a customer success manager, you work with literally everybody in the organization. You're in the middle of it. Implementation, support, sales, legal, contracts. The amount of people you have to work are endless. It could be very tedious if you choose to look at it that way, like 5 more people to give me an answer to some question. Or it could be exciting because I don't know the answer to it, but somebody in technical support has it, so tell me, I really want to know it. So just open up to the fact that you will continuously keep learning. And when I talk to customers, or any one of us talks to customers, regardless who they are, at what level they are, you know how often in software vendors, we have our administrators, we have our C-level suite, we have like multiple personas. They learn from everyone. Doesn't matter if they're not a C-level person. Ask them what's a day in their I don't know, in the life of a finance person looks like. I'm not a finance person. I don't know how it is. I'm going to find out if I ask you. So I think that brings the knowledge that can give you then enough self-esteem to be comfortable with the uncomfortable.
Yes, that's very well said. Very, very well said. I think, you know, again, we're lifelong learners. You know, we're students every day because there's always something new to discover, whether it's in our professional life and our personal life. And it's being open to that and recognizing that we can learn from anyone around us, or whoever they are, whatever experience they have. As you said, me and you have got very different life experiences, so there's always something we can learn from each other. And it's something to recognize, and then therefore be willing and open to ask questions. You know, I had somebody recently who messaged me saying that they were struggling because they were new to a company, they were working remotely, and they were struggling, but they didn't want to ask for help. And my response is, you're new to a company, you're new to the role. Why on earth would you expect that people expect you to know everything? Yeah. And you're not even in the office, you're working from home.
Absolutely.
You know, and again, it comes back to the fear of what people will think and the fear of judgment. And there's always going to be some of that.
Yeah. We create so much pressure, put so much pressure on ourselves. And then there is that element, especially if you're new to a company or remote, then there is that element of being embarrassed, not to be seen as incompetent. But somebody, I don't know, somebody must have told me in my career something amazing. But somebody told me, if you're not asking questions, then I will definitely think something is wrong. And I took it as my Bible. I took it literally.
And I always asking questions.
Yes. And then really just kept doing that to my teams as well. Look, if you're not asking me questions, I'll definitely think something is wrong. And then you scare them a little bit with that, but then they end up being so much more open about the fact, well, yes, Milena, I was going through this session and these few things popped up. Like, what about them? I'm like, thank you for asking. Like, I think people don't realize how much more smart and intelligent they look if they ask questions, as opposed to sitting quietly, nodding, looking like they understand everything.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think we've touched on a lot of this already, but I just wanted to understand from you, what is the level of importance that you apply to your professional relationships? Now, this is from the perspective of doing your job well, but also from your career advancement.
I'm glad you asked that, because it's such a huge thing, isn't it, these days? Like, oh, networking, your network. It is. I recognize that. I thrive on my network. But I think that the way I look at my professional relationships is, again, from a learning point of view. They're not like assets to utilize. No. The way we, so when I think, let's say, of a career progression, you could overperform, I don't know, I guess, in every sense, and you are being spotted as a genius, and then you just keep going up, or you keep connecting and helping people outside of your immediate team. You find business challenges and business problems to solve that don't directly benefit you. You create visibility for yourself, but at the same time, you expanded your circle into places you don't normally operate in. You learned now, that's where the best part comes. Now you ended up learning from people with different points of view, different perspectives, and you guys together ended up delivering on whatever solution to a problem, a project. I believe 2 heads are smarter than 1, and 3 heads are smarter than 2. So the more we connect, the more we ask questions of the same questions of different people, you will realize how we differently frame the problem, how differently we might decide to solve the problem. And before you know it, all of us can merge into something way more brilliant than by ourselves. So that's how I see connections. So if I talk to you about something, I think I will be richer for it. And also, when it comes to that career progression element, yes, because one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on, where most of them are actually outside of my own teams, with people that don't have much to do with me, solution consultants, enablement, and this is jargon from the tech world. I don't know if people that are outside of the tech world will get it, but yeah. But we all would identify a business problem that if we solve it will be good for everyone. I didn't necessarily have to pick something that will benefit me and my team directly, but it will benefit everyone. And it was enjoyable experience, because suddenly it exposes you to teams, departments, processes, even systems, tools that you have to use that you haven't really used before, but you signed up for it. You're in it now, and you help each other elevate, because they are exposed to you and your world. You're exposed to them and their world. And you know what? You know what the reality is, Leila? 5 years from now, we will be the hiring managers. We will be the entrepreneurs. We will be the whoever the next person that will give you the next gig will be, as we already are. So it's not because we became friends because I think you can get me a job, or because you can introduce me to someone interesting, but you and I connected because we mutually can benefit from sharing our knowledge, sharing our networks with each other, and together succeeding on a certain project or a certain, I don't know why I did this together succeeding. And then those connections last. They do.
Yeah. And, again, a really important point you've made there, because I think people, and I know other people have witnessed this, where someone will only choose to reach out to their network because they need a job. They suddenly find themselves in the job market, then they'll start reaching out to people. And this is not to say people won't help, because they will, but actually it is about nurturing the people around you, cultivating those relationships and supporting people without the expectation of getting anything back, because the law of reciprocity will always kick in.
Absolutely.
And that's how the world works. And therefore, it may be that you help somebody, they may not necessarily return that favor or help you in return, but you just don't know what will come of that. You may mention you to somebody, it may not even come from them, it may be that some complete stranger helps you out, but that's how the world works, as you say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everybody has such we all have diverse sets of skills and talents. So when we are working on something, it's just, in my opinion, I think it's cool to tap into other people's resources and know-how. So whatever it is, like a project, an event, just spread the word. Just ask, just see if, hey, are you interested? Would you like to look into this with me? See where that goes. You never know, maybe that was exactly the kind of opportunity that person was waiting for, or by you guys connecting, they will tell you something that you didn't know about, and suddenly is a valuable piece of knowledge. And I think nurturing relationships for the sake of the relationship, for the sake of that relationship being fruitful to both of us, is the right way to go. That doesn't mean that I will ever find a job through every contact I have. But yeah, the knowledge that we can share is invaluable.
Absolutely. And then tell me then, Milena, when it comes to unconscious bias in the workplace, what is your approach to that? How do you deal with that?
So I don't know if I have specifically an approach to that. There are two things that play a big role. So one, obviously, I'm a woman in tech, and I'm so aware we are a minority. I'm also very aware the boards are full of white males. So it inevitably I lean towards women, hiring women. I mean, I would always say I hire anyone, but I go out of my way to give girls opportunities. I would absolutely do that. I am not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed. I would go out of my way to give a girl an opportunity, particularly when they're young and still insecure. When we are well experienced and tenured, sometimes we come with a little bit more confidence, but often I see younger women so not trusting themselves, particularly when they operate in a male-dominated world. They would contain their opinion, they will be afraid to ask a question, and they're just happy that they're there. And my motto is no. They are happy you're there. Yeah. So there is a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you have earned this space to occupy this space, and don't underplay it. But it's easy to underplay it for us, particularly when we are younger and experienced. So yeah, I've made it my mission wherever I have an opportunity to make sure that either I involve a young, bright female in working on a project with me, or being hired, or being recommended, or I will help coach them for interviews, or how to deal with a difficult situation. I would help coach anyone, but mostly I would definitely, I know probably how to talk the language of a young, insecure female. And I think that I probably have a bias towards that. I'm like that. And recently, I feel so honored to have had that experience. Through SAP, we had and SAP does this a lot. So there was a pro bono consulting work they offered to Black-owned small businesses. And quite few of us from SAP were pro bono consultants to small businesses, social enterprises that were run by Black owners. And I was very, very educated and had to open my eyes towards actually, yes, to how discriminated people of color in business are. I didn't know. I actually never knew. Of course, that comes from me being white, female. Yeah, I never realized that actually a Black entrepreneur asking for a loan is half less likely to get that loan in a bank than his white counterpart. And it was I was like a 7-year-old girl getting educated on the realities of systemic racism. And I was so happy. I ended up trying to give back a little bit by helping the social enterprise I was helping. But that's another element where I just recently learned to open my eyes to, because I was always like, oh, it's all married. I always was a firm believer that no, like I never see color. It's all married. I'm like, no, Milena, you need to go out of your way to see whether we can include those people that don't even have a chance to apply to a job I'm recruiting for, etc., etc.
Yeah. So important. And I think that probably goes, what you're saying there, for a lot of people over the last couple of years, particularly with everything that's been happening and, and the news that's being exposed of the reality of the way the world works. And there's a lot we can do to address it. And one of the biggest things is being open to the education and understanding. And then, as you are doing in a fantastic way, is creating opportunities for people. And although, as you said, it is a little bit of a bias, but it's a bias towards that equality, let's say.
Yes.
Encouraging young women into tech.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic work that you're doing there. So tell me, Milena, as we begin to wrap up here, but tell me, what is the greatest challenge that you've had to deal with so far in your career?
Well, a challenge like this where I'm on a meeting and my phone goes on. So I always have a feeling like there were multiple milestones that I had to overcome in my career to get to the next step. But I think most of those challenges were always associated to how I navigated relationships, how I navigated people, how I showed up in that landscape. So let's say my latest, a typical example of this would be, as I took over on a more EMEA-wide role, so included a bunch of countries, bunch of regions, continents as well, as the role became global, suddenly my world of stakeholders expanded a lot. So now, while I always trusted myself to be really good in relationships, like I know I can listen, I can talk, I'm credible in what I do and all of that, it is a very different game when your world expands times 100. And when suddenly professionally you had to meet the expectations of diverse group of not only people but diverse markets. So culturally, and when I say market, I mean culturally, I suddenly had to navigate meeting the expectations of stakeholders that just defined maybe success differently, or maybe defined what good looks like differently. So while before I had to only deal maybe with the UK and Ireland, now suddenly I had to learn what good looks like in Italy and France and Spain and so on, and had to overcome that cultural maybe differences in how we conduct ourselves in business relationships, how we communicate. Definitely how Germans communicate is very different than how French communicate, let me tell you that. So yeah, so that was quite a big, interesting change to overcome, to learn to overcome, and then live with.
And what was the biggest skill that you drew upon to be able to overcome that, would you say?
I think it will go back again to listening and observing. It goes back to if you listen carefully enough, you will notice the difference. So if you notice the difference, then you will be able to adapt. Because if I just went on working with how I worked, and I was predominantly used to deal with UK, US, so that native English speaking culture. If I went with that approach, I very quickly realized, first of all, the jargon I'm using should definitely change a little bit. So tune into how people listen, to whether are they listening, are they confused maybe, or are they following? Tune into their responses. So I think, yeah, through how I learned to navigate, the lesson was, oh my God, listen and tune into your audience. Nothing matters more than that, when you adapt into your audience. So yeah, that was that, I think.
Yeah, and again, you know, that's something you talked about earlier as well, listening, because often people will forget and they want to talk and talk and talk, but actually just the listening, observation of what's going on around you, and being able to adapt, I think are the takeaways I picked up there from what you just shared.
Yeah.
And what I love about you is you've got great energy, great passion, and you know, you're really driven to do what you do at the highest level. So tell me, what is it that motivates you to do what you do?
You know what, because I'm in such a people-centered profession, genuinely helping others, because the reward comes when you have realized you've made an impact. The reward comes when you have seen you have changed something for the better, someone's problem, someone's life, whatever it was, whether it's my customer, whether it's my team, whether it's my colleague. My job is really not isolated, it's full of people. So what really keeps me going is, oh my God, I actually could make a difference. I could help someone, I could help something. And that still is the most rewarding element of my work.
I love that. I love that. Fantastic. And it's great to see, to meet someone like yourself who is so driven and is so passionate about what you do. And again, for those that are listening to this and who are still struggling to figure out what it is they're passionate about, or to find, you know, their purpose, let's say, it's really take some time to, as we talked about at the start, really to begin with, showing up as you, embracing your uniqueness. And from that, you recognize your strengths, your skills, what it is you love to do.
Absolutely. And this probably will come a little bit from my spiritual side, but we as humans, we are most fulfilled when we are of service to something or someone. You might not know it, you might not recognize it, but yes, the moments when we are the happiest is when we are of service to something or someone. So there is no big purpose to our lives. I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I think our biggest purpose is simply showing up in our unique set of greatness and giving it, sharing it with the world or whoever is there to receive it. And I think that's where happiness, fulfillment comes.
That's a beautiful way to finish, Milena. And I will absolutely second what you just said, because, you know, since I've kind of stepped out of my corporate career, I'm doing what I do now, and I've, you know, met with and spoken to so many very successful entrepreneurs and business owners. And, you know, a lot of the time when they started out, their goal was to make their millions. And yet when they got there, they still weren't fulfilled. They still weren't satisfied. And now it is about actually serving others. What can you do to contribute, to give back, and to help others? So I absolutely agree with you on that point. Milena, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you, Leila.
Thanks. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do subscribe to the show so you don't miss any future episodes. And remember to leave a review telling us about your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on the importance of personal branding when it comes to your career advancement. And also ensure that others can benefit from these invaluable insights from many inspirational leaders. I will be eternally grateful. And if you are looking to earn more money, to get promoted, to secure your next role and advance your career, and would like me to support you personally on that journey to get you there, then reach out to me and let's arrange a chat. Alternatively, why don't you check out my personal branding launchpad, a group training and mentoring program. Finally, if you'd like to connect with me directly, then do reach out and direct message me on LinkedIn. You can find the link as well as any other resources mentioned in the show notes. I'll see you next time.